Well, thank you so much for joining me on this week's episode of the Not a Scooby podcast. Let's just jump straight into things with my very first question, which is what does everyone get wrong about B2B marketing?
Thank you for having me, firstly. This is my first ever podcast, so I've edited them for ages, but this is my first one I've ever recorded, so bear with me. What do people get wrong about B2B marketing? I think there's a tendency for people to play it safe, and I think we use it as a PR mechanism, especially social media, of announcing exciting things and being too safe and a bit too corporate, especially smaller businesses. You see the big players putting all their press releases out and that type of stuff, but actually we're missing the point, which is to connect with an audience, rather than it be a case of we're trying to just shout at people. We want to connect with them and engage with them. And so lack of emotion, lack of a brand that stands out, and just sort of like milling in and seeing marketing as a checkbox, essentially.
Mm-hmm. Do you think some content is maybe guilty of constantly focusing on we need to be selling our product or service, and every single piece of content needs to feel like an advertisement?
100%. I think it always comes back to how close the business is to their product, and then it becomes very much like blinkered on this is the thing we've got to say because this is what we're trying to sell, rather than what do our audience want to hear, what do our audience care about. So I think sometimes when you work with an agency or something like that, they can help sort of bring you back from we want to talk about jobs that we've got on and jobs we want to fill. Okay, but what do your audience want to see? Well, they want to see content relating to how they get a better job, how they can ask for a pay rise, like how they can do things within their career, rather than you just shouting about which jobs you're now hiring for, because it becomes very boring very quickly in that sense. So yeah, I think there's it's sometimes you're a bit too close to the action. If that makes sense.
Mm. And what I'm getting there from what you just said is that people are consuming your content for personal gain, which isn't to make the audience sound like they're being selfish, but they're not watching the video for you. They're watching it to get something for them. Like you said, advice on how to ask for a raise and finding these tips and this knowledge that will benefit them in their life.
Mm-hmm.
So I think often the content that people need to be making should be focused on their audience, shouldn't be thinking that this is a stage for them to sort of stand on and shout about what they're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you've got if you haven't got that audience front of mind, you will just automatically default to, right, what have we got to talk about that we're trying to do, rather than how can we help our audience with what they want to do, so that when it comes to them wanting a job, we're top of mind. Can we talk more about our industry and the trends we're seeing and those type of things, rather than it be a case of like, actually, yeah, we just, we're looking for new clients, we're looking for new candidates. Let's just spam LinkedIn with exciting news.
Mm-hmm. And something I've seen you speak about on LinkedIn, which I totally agree with, is employee generated content. Mm-hmm. So stuff that's maybe not the CEO, the COO, like the founder talking. It's actually probably the people that the audience can relate to more, being the employees.
Yeah, I think CEO and COO are a great place to start. That founder brand piece, and getting them talking about their mission and why they're doing it and what they want to achieve from the business can help resonate with people. But yeah, like I'll use recruitment as an example because that's where most of my clients are. Using your consultants to build relationships with people who will eventually be looking for jobs or hiring for jobs is a great way of scaling that message. And you can really, if you give them backing to create video, you can actually find that they're probably very creative people in terms of they've grown up on Instagram, they're growing up on TikTok, like they know how to make these videos. If you give them the license to go for it, try it, and fail sometimes, then that's where you'll win, because most marketing is trial and error, right? You iterate, you find the thing that works, you scale that thing, but until you find it, you're just sort of testing, like, how does this work? Is it resonating? Are we finding that it's driving the thing we want it to? So I think there's, a scalability in finding someone in your team who wants to start a podcast or wants to have conversations around the industry, and giving them the opportunity to do that, rather than be like, right, this is your job, that's what you've got to do. See it as a KPI driven thing. So I want to grow my personal brand on LinkedIn. Okay, well, how many connection requests are we sending? How many comments are we making on ICP's content? Can you build that out? Does it work? Do we scale it? Who else wants to do it? Because once I think your team see that it's working for someone else, they're all going to want to know how to do it. They're all going to want to jump into that boat and start building theirs. So yeah, I think that EGC piece is it's going to take off.
Yeah, absolutely. And is that the key thing, that the employee needs to be passionate about the kind of content you're asking them to make? Because I think the flip side works as well. I've had conversations with businesses where they've kind of forced, say, the apprentice to do all the content creation, and then I speak to the apprentice and I'm like, but mate, are you interested in this? He's like, nah, not really. And it's like, okay, well then that's kind of the problem. Is there anyone in the team that is genuinely passionate about this kind of stuff?
Yeah, I think that's
because if you try and shoehorn it into someone that didn't sign up for this, then they're never going to be happy.
Yeah, I think that's the key. Is it's a bit like anything, right? The more you try and get someone to do something they don't want to do, there's always going to be a resistance. Whereas if you've got someone that wants to do it, then you give them the opportunity to do it, you give them a resource to do it, you give them time to do it, then you check that it's working, right? And then people see it's working, they're going to want it in. It's not a case of, the youngest person now runs the TikTok account. Okay, that's not quite how it works. They might be good at it, but you don't know that, because they might be really introverted and not want to do anything on camera, not want to be the face of it, and just stereotyping that this person must be on TikTok because they're young. So I think there's a real case for finding skill sets within your team. Have you got someone that likes editing video, that they could do that, and that could be sort of part of their side job, or filming behind the scenes content. It doesn't always need to be someone in the marketing department. It can be someone that is doing the job, and to be honest, that behind the scenes of the job in progress is pretty good content if you make it resonate with your audience.
Mm-hmm. Do you think B2B businesses focus too much on LinkedIn and not enough on other social platforms?
Yes and no. I would say, it is a great platform. I think that it's a changing platform. I think we're seeing a lot more creators come onto LinkedIn, which is a good thing for the platform. But then I think there's a lot of people who see that as a negative, where they want to be able to just post a job post and people engage with it. Whereas now it's getting lost in engaging videos, thought leadership videos, podcast clips, all these things that are value adding to a wider audience and more like top of funnel, middle of funnel, and not that bottom of funnel piece, which is buy my stuff. I think businesses can work on TikTok, Instagram. I think they just need to actually play to the platform, rather than be like, oh, we've made this thing for LinkedIn, let's go ahead and just post it on TikTok, rather than thinking, right, is that what people on TikTok would want to see? I think with LinkedIn, people are there with purpose. They're there, day to day, Monday to Friday, for business purposes, messaging, all that sort of stuff. Whereas Instagram and LinkedIn, it's much more like, well, I'm going to go on there in my downtime, and that's when I want entertaining, rather than something shoved down my face in terms of a job post or a sales pitch. So yeah, I think it's playing to the platform. You've got to play to what people want to see on those platforms, and if you don't, your content will just get lost. Whereas if you can feed the algorithm essentially with decent content, you'll probably find your niches there somewhere, because most people are on these platforms consuming content. It's just the content they want, rather than the content you want them to see.
Is there something to be said, though, particularly about TikTok, that are views overrated? Because say someone's like, oh, look at this video, I got, say, 10,000 views. Amazing. It's like, okay, but how much, as a B2B business, how much did that convert into a lead, a conversation, and business? And how much was that 10,000 people that just found the video you put up of you
Good question.
washing a car really satisfying, but we're never going to buy from you?
Good question. My TikTok account has got 130 followers. I haven't had a video go over 1,000 views. I've had 2 leads from it, and that's good for like a one-man business, right? Like I've had 2 leads, one's converted just from reposting similar videos, essentially. But so for me, anything that's view related is not worth looking at. I literally posted today about how I've had meetings where people have referenced 2, 3, 4 posts that I've posted on LinkedIn, no engagement, not liked it, not commented, but they've seen them, they're seeing them. I'm building that trust through at scale with them. So it's not a case of, oh, I'm going into this meeting cold. They've seen my face, they've heard my voice, they know my views on certain things. And that's the rapport part partly done. Like people can just go and see what you're doing. In terms of like TikTok and stuff like that, it's more a case of like being present, showing up on other people's content as well. And I'm probably not very good at that, but I think there's a case to be said for, especially personal branding stuff, for making sure you're engaging with the audience, not just shouting at them and leaving, especially in your own comments, like posting and ghosting. Just don't go there.
So what is posting and ghosting for anyone that doesn't know?
Posting and ghosting is writing your post, posting your video, leaving it and not engaging with anyone in the comments. I think people see it from big creators, Bartlett, Hormozy, like they don't go into their comments, but where we're trying to build rapport with these people, if someone comes along and leaves a thoughtful comment, like you need to be asking a question back, or like giving that conversation back, because I've done it plenty of times where I've left a comment on someone's thing. I thought that's a good comment. They're going to come back. We're going to have a conversation about this. Not even like ICP or anything like that. Just a person that I thought, oh, I've got a thought process on this. Don't reply. Next time I see their post, I just scrolled past. Maybe gave them a like, but I'm not engaging in their algorithm if they've just posted and left. And I think if you're trying to grow, you've got to show up in the comments for the first hour after you post. Is there a comment? Can I start a conversation? Because it looks good as well, right? Like, oh, I've got 16 comments. Well, 8 of them were me, but I've got 16 comments, and it helps sort of build that trust piece. But posting and ghosting, try not to do it if you can help it.
Mm-hmm. And you put a lot of time into your personal brand. I see most of your content on LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. What is the balance between you posting it on your personal profile, personal branding, and how much is it through the BCENE business account?
It's 100% personal. I haven't posted yet on the BCENE LinkedIn account. Everything is Will Colthup rather than being the company, mainly because the company is not fully formed or fully fledged, or I'm not 100% sure what it is. There's no website, there's nowhere to direct people. So it's better that people get to know me because I am the company, right? I think for bigger businesses, the LinkedIn company pages can be really good placeholders. So for, really nicely produced video content that's about recruitment and these sort of things. But I honestly don't think posting 5 times a week on your company page is going to move the needle much. Whereas if you've got a founder or your CFO or someone who wants to make content, you're going to find a lot more. You're going to get a lot more from them posting daily. I think stats say like 10 times reach of personal profiles to company profiles on LinkedIn. So I mean that's enough of a stat for me to not worry about the company page.
Mm-hmm. That makes a lot of sense, because even myself, when I see someone's personal profile on LinkedIn, they suddenly seem a lot more approachable. I can comment on them and I feel like I'm building a relationship. I can even send them a message, and in all likelihood I'm going to get response because I'm talking to a human being. It's not their logo, and I'm not really entirely sure who's behind that profile.
Yeah, exactly. And LinkedIn is for people, right? Like it's for networking, essentially. That's what people would say. It's for driving that networking at scale, rather than it be a case for your company page to use it as a PR machine. that can work sometimes, but I don't think it works for the smaller businesses. I don't think it works for SMEs. Most of the time, like if you see a company page with a lot of engagement, you go on it and it's all the people that work there. So you kind of sort of just sort of gaming the liking system on that. But yeah, I think if you're a small business or you're like a solo founder or whatever, personal brand is the way to go, and don't even worry about the business page to start with. And then if you're a bigger business, use it as a placeholder for really good content and really important information, and then have it as a place like if you're coming to a point where you're going to start scaling and you're going to start employing people, that's where you direct them for the videos that are the, come and work for us videos, and to meet the team and that sort of thing, and have that there so it's top of mind and it's well structured in the case of like having featured posts and your pinned post be the most important one and all that sort of stuff, and not have it be for your day-to-day value add content.
Mm-hmm. So let's dive a bit into how you've grown your personal brand, and particularly the creative process that you go through. How do you film the content? Who's editing it? These sort of things. So let's first start off with recording the content. Do you record it in bulk, or do you try to do one a day? What is your schedule?
Yeah, in bulk. I've slacked on it recently. I got lucky when we closed down the last business. I had some in the bank, which was nice. But I've sort of slipped off a little bit. But definitely in bulk, at least five videos a time. Try and change up like locations and stuff like that if I can. But most of the time I'm in the office at home, or so it's similar background and stuff like that. But I'm always trying with my personal brand to be more. Have more energy, and sometimes that works against me because I'm not overly extroverted, so like talking fast and being loud and using my hands a lot doesn't really come naturally to me. So I actually find myself being a lot more natural and slower and methodical with it. But yeah, most of my content is scripted. I just sort of like write down ideas, ideate on the idea, ask ChatGPT to ask me some questions about it, pull that into a nice script, and then just work on like the hook as the key piece. So like, has this got a strong enough hook? And then like batch record basically. It's sometimes a painful process recording. Sometimes it works nicely. It just depends on the day. I think it's a bit like going to the gym and you think you're going to do really well and you have a bad day. But and it's more a case of not chasing perfection for me. Like, I feel like I've done that before and I'm trying to make the best video possible, but actually doing a good enough job is good enough, and just being able to create. So I've started being a bit more scrappy. So recording client calls and finding other ways to make that content is a good way of doing that, especially if you're just starting out, rather than having to fork out for expensive editor, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So do you also edit it all yourself?
Yes and no. I do outsource some bits in terms of like animations and stuff like that, because it's sometimes time consuming running your own business and doing the editing and doing the scripting and doing client work. So I'd rather outsource my personal stuff so it can be done have some other eyes on it, because sometimes I will always sort of like ruminate on it and just let it sit. Whereas if I can just send a video file off to someone and they know roughly what I want, then it comes back well done, and then I can get some feedback too from elsewhere. Otherwise you sit in your own little bubble, don't you? And you think, oh, I've done really well here. Oh, I've done really well. And then you realize, oh, I missed that most important part of the video, and it's gone live. But I always try and be collaborative with this stuff as well. So I always film with other people if possible. It's not always possible, but yeah, if we can, then having someone sit behind the camera is always nicer than talking directly at a lens for me.
Mm-hmm, definitely. And I think a massive hurdle that people overcome and probably convince themselves not to create personal brand content is it's so time consuming. Mm-hmm. So how do you make it so that it is as efficient as possible? For example, how long do you spend scripting, filming, and then editing? And have you been able to sort of automate or systematize anything in that process?
I think probably leaning on AI for the scripting mainly, because that's probably my weakest part, and I think that's where I can get the most help. So whether it's using like a custom GPT or something like that to help me sort of pull my ideas together. So build a GPT that, like, basically if you give it one idea, it'll ask you 5 questions back. From those 5 questions, it can then populate much more of a longer form post, rather than it just be a case of like, oh, I've got this one idea. It actually helps you pull more thoughts out of yourself. So that's really useful. A bit like having like a copywriter ask you questions after you've given them an idea, which we've had before, which was really useful. But editing, filming wise, I think you can just be simple with it. I think you can film your content on an iPhone for personal branding content. I think it's important to have good audio. If you can wear a laved mic or something like that, that's cool. And then being in a nicely lit area, don't make it too dark. I feel like, and this probably goes against some of what I do, is like the highly polished stuff is good, but we're seeing sort of like a death of it essentially. So like people much prefer a talking head with a hard cut and some subtle subtitles, rather than, you know, amazing motion graphics and glitches and that sort of stuff, which can work if it adds to the story. But if it's like a random graphic to hide a cut, like, it's not worth it. Or if it's stock B-roll to hide, you know, the cuts in your audio, like, I think it takes away from what you're trying to say and it makes it look cheaper. I've got a long piece about B-roll if you want it.
Yeah, I agree absolutely, and it's that fine balance between creating a lot of content consistently and making it of good quality, but it not taking priority over the actual work.
Yeah. So
like, it needs to be serving the business.
It's a really fine balance, and it's more like, all right, this is how much time I can dedicate to this. What can I get done in that time? And then committing to that time for a long period of time. So rather than it be a case of, right, I'm going to do 10 videos this week, and then for the next 4 weeks, I'm going to do none. Can I do 2 a week for the next 6 months? Because that's going to get you in a much better position than doing 10 videos, putting them all out in 3 weeks, and then having nothing, and then you start panicking again. So it's more like, how many hours can I dedicate to this? How many hours can I put in? Where's my weak spot? Can I get help? Do I need help? Can I use Descript or something like that to help edit it? And then just figuring that out from there. Because I think that's the key, isn't it? Right? Like, we're all running businesses at the same time as trying to do this stuff. It's a case of just balancing it nicely.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. I think there's a lot of good value there of talking through that process and how you actually go through things. So shall we actually move on to BCENE?
You can talk.
What is it, and sort of who's involved?
Who knows what it is really at the moment? It's a young business. It's only started in February. So the way I see it, and it's probably a bit philanthropic, is that it's for the smaller guy, like for the little, solopreneurs, smaller businesses that want to be seen, want to be out there. They know content matters, but it's that time piece, right? They don't have the time to deliver it. And it's a case of, helping them create event content, podcasts, personal branding content, and putting it together in something that isn't a 10K a month package or, a crazy amount of money per month, and showing them and helping them and probably coaching them to be able to do it on their own. So it feels very much like I'm like trying to be the good guy and show you how you can do it cheaply. But I think there's something to be said for building up, like you say, these systems where like they can give me an idea, I can write a script, I can write 10 scripts, we then go and film 10 scripts, and then they've got 10 videos. And you do that every other month, and they have this constant roll of content that looks good, it sounds good, it's well edited, and off you go. So it's those clients where 10 new clients a year is going to like change their business, rather than it be a case of like, can we pull in 1,000 leads this month? Actually working with the under brands, or the underdog brands essentially. So yeah, I think that's what it is at the moment. That's what it feels like.
No, that is nice. Yeah. And so is it somewhat training, like you said, coaching them? Are they? But you're still involved in the content creation.
Yeah. So I will script and then film and coach on the day. So a lot of the coaching I find I'm doing at the moment is trying to get people to talk directly at camera. I feel like that's probably the four things that I see people struggle with is time, creativity, the skills to edit, and then the fear of a camera, right? Like, so if it's on the to-do list, make personal branding content, it slips down that to-do list because time, and then it slips down because I haven't quite got the ideas I need, and then it slips down because I haven't got the skills I want to edit, and then the final one is actually I don't really want to be on camera. So it's a lot about like I've been through this and I've done it recently of I didn't really want to be on camera, and now I'm being on camera. I'm like, oh well, the messages that are in my head that I think people are going to send me or are going to say, no one said, right? So it's just a case of believing that you can add value to your wider network. And I think there's a lot of people that will be put off by staring down a camera, but can be coached into why it's not quite as scary.
Hmm. And diving more into that is the number one fear that what are people gonna think?
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna think I'm trying to be the next guru. I'm trying to be the next Alex Ramosi,
Yeah.
and it's like, is that the reality? I've never had that personal experience of someone messaging me a massive paragraph of Jack, who do you think you are?
Yeah. It's like, they're trying to be an influencer or they're trying to be, this next Stephen Bartlett because they're doing a podcast and stuff like that. But in reality, like people either like your content, not like your content, engage with it or not engage with it. But, I've never had, horrible messages or anything that I thought in my head, like, oh, I hate the way I sound or the way I look or anything like that has ever been said anywhere online. Yeah, but it's not.
Hmm.
It's more in here that it needs sort of like thinking about because otherwise you'll just beat yourself up on everything. And that can be why having an editor is good, right? Because you don't have to listen to yourself back, which can sometimes be off-putting if you're not the happiest with the sound of your voice. But what can you do about the sound of your voice, right?
Yeah, I agree. I've made a video on that just of like everyone's got insecurities, and you're right. Doing video is going to magnify those insecurities, and you're going to be more aware than ever after you watch a video of yourself that you've got a receding hairline or you don't like the sound of your own voice or whatever it is. The fact is, if you just keep doing it over and over and over again, you're just gonna, at some point, particularly with your voice, you're gonna get over it.
Definitely, yeah. All those things, just got to work through it. A bit like anything else, you've got to work through the pain. Don't like cold calling. Okay, well, I'll get used to it, and I'll get used to the rejection, and I'll get used to some of my videos only having 10 seconds of watch back or whatever it looks like. But it's a process you're working through. It's not this video needs to do everything for me. It's a learning curve. It's a 1% better. It's how do you improve that? And part of it is getting out your own way, right? Like getting out your own way and realizing that no one else cares how you look or how you sound. They're more concerned with the message you're delivering.
Hmm. So if someone's got, they're a small business owner, solopreneur, say they've got 8 hours out, let's say a week to put into content, where should that time be put into?
I would say a really good place to start. And in terms of what you can build is to start writing text posts to see what starts resonating. So rather than go, right, I'm going to script 10 videos and I'm going to record them all and then I'm going to post them and none of them resonate with your audience, start writing your ideas down in text posts, start posting them on LinkedIn as text posts, see what's resonating, see which messaging works, and then build out what the videos could look like from there. So like most of my videos have already been done in text post form. So I've already posted them at some point. They've got a decent amount of engagement. I thought there's some comments on there that I like. There's some bits that I can add to this video, but actually it makes more sense to do it that way and invest in starting with your content, especially if you're not doing anything, or if you are already making text posts, go back through the old ones, see which ones perform the best, take that content, spin it up a few different ways for a video, take those ideas, ruminate on them, figure out what bits you like, what bits you didn't, and then start building out scripts. Then just sort of get to filming, get an app like Captions or Descript or something like that, where you can easily add captions, easily edit, and just start playing around with it, or outsource it if you want to outsource it. Like that's cool too. But I do think there's definitely a play for having a go at it yourself to understand what making video is about, rather than just being like offloading it. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Hmm. And absolutely about the sort of the testing, test the water by making it a text post. And I would even take it one step further if anyone was then considering long form content, which is something I certainly plan on doing later down the line, is I use that short form content to either validate or reject these concepts. And if something gets a great deal of engagement, okay, maybe I should make a 10-minute video around this subject. Say if it's around the limiting beliefs of why you're not getting in front of the camera. But like you said, what's the actual mindset stuff that's stopping you? And if that got a lot of engagement as a short form piece, oh, maybe I should make this into a 10-minute video. And then it becomes a 90-minute documentary by the end of things.
And if you're short on time for what content do I want to talk about, look at what you're talking about with your clients. Look at what questions they're asking. Look at what they're discussing with you. Look at what problems they have, and that's a really good place to start, because they're coming to you as an expert to answer these questions for them. What can you help them with in that situation, rather than it be a case of like, oh, I've got to start from scratch. Actually, go back through your old meetings, get them get Otter to go through them and pull out key points. Like, there's so many ways of finding what people want you to talk about that isn't just you sitting in the dark room thinking about what you want to say. Yeah, so definitely look back through your older meetings, older posts, whatever it looks like. You've got content there. You just need to figure out how to make it into content.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And to pivot slightly, can we speak about Search Stack? This was your previous business before BCENE.
Yep.
And what happened there? You went on to actually close that business to start BCENE, and particularly, what were the lessons you learned that you're then bringing on to this new business?
Cool. Yeah, I think it was a decision taken out of my hands. So it wasn't something that I saw coming. We weren't in a bad place financially, but we weren't in the best place. So that's always one of those things where, you know, you seem to be fighting that uphill battle. You seem to be fighting against the bills that need paying, the employees that need paying, that sort of stuff. And it got to a point where it was a case of like, if we close it now, everyone can walk away with a nice package in terms of the employees, in terms of redundancy, that sort of stuff. We're not going to be in 6 months' time scrapping around to sell desks and laptops and stuff to pay people. So calling it early and realizing and seeing what it was and seeing that we weren't enjoying doing that anymore was probably one of the biggest lessons. And seeing like, actually, if this doesn't work and it's not enjoyable, the hardest thing to do is to say that. But the best thing to do is to say that, and then to pivot, to figure out what it looks like next. Like when my co-founder, co-director said to me, I don't want to do this anymore, it wasn't a question of, oh, why, or no, we've got to keep going. It was fine. Like it's fine. Like it will all work out. We will all be fine. Both of our employees both got new jobs already. Like they both landed them within 5 weeks of leaving, because they're great employees. And it's just a case of like, this will be all right. It will be hard, but it will be all right. So yeah, that was a good lesson. I think it's hopefully a lesson I won't have to deal with again, but it was a good lesson. I think hiring wise, always hire for attitude rather than skills. Like, find the people that you can train, find the people that want to learn, find the people that enjoy having different tasks sort of put on them, especially in this early stage. Like, finding a specialist that can do one thing really well is great, but only if you've got a whole week's worth of that one thing to be done. Whereas if you can find someone that can do bits and pieces, that wants to build the business, wants to help where they can, will do the dirty work and find the processes that can be tightened up, that's always key. Another one is like trusting your gut on red flags. Like, there's a lot of red flags floating around. If you see them, just be wary of them, because there's been times where we've gone, oh no, I think we can turn this around. You can work with this client. That'll be all right. It will be okay. And it's always backfired. Every time I've had that feeling in my stomach that this could be the one that's that a bit too much. Either we're biting off too much that we can chew, or they're going to ask more than they should be, and that sort of stuff. Like just be wary of them when they come. Yeah. And we built the business with employees, which is probably something I'm not going to do now, and just work with freelancers, because it's great having a team and it's great building out a team, but it's also a lot to manage. That always comes back to me, is like, you're responsible for these people, you're responsible for their family, and that's a lot to have on your head, especially when, you know, we've been through a few things and like, it's a bit turbulent and all these things. So yeah, they're my biggest takeaways. Yeah, definitely lessons to be had. But like I said, like, there was a no-brainer when it was time to pull the plug, and that's is what it is.
Mm-hmm. But I do think it's really important. Like, you've already clearly reflected so much on that experience, and literally anyone that's even vaguely successful failed over and over and over again, and simply just didn't stop. They're just like, I'm just going to keep storming through this wall over and over again until it works.
Yep.
Which I think is like the only approach to take.
Iterate it and then figure it out and then iterate it again. It's a marketing thing, right? Like, we're just trying to figure out the thing. There's products that work. There's definitely, you know, business out there. How do we make the businesses that we want to work with see that this is the way that they can change their business and how it can impact their bottom line? I think that's the key, right? A lot of the time marketing's like that top of the funnel piece, and we speak a lot about like brand awareness and not chasing the likes and not chasing that. But, you know, I've had podcast clients that are landing big money from the guests that are coming on their podcasts. If we were to attribute that to something in their business, it would just be a BD piece, right? But actually, like, the fact that they're running this podcast is what's driven that person to want to work with them. So marketing can get a bad rap for like being wishy and stuff like that. But in the world where, you know, attribution is very, very washy and grey, especially with Apple and changing all their privacy settings and things like that, like, sometimes it's hard to know where people have come from and where they've first seen you. And sometimes that top of funnel piece is really like, it's like podcast content. Like, it is, oh, I saw a clip, then I listened to an episode, then I clicked on your website, or I Googled you, and then Google would tell you that's direct from Google traffic. But actually, they've done all this stuff over here before they've got anywhere near that. And that's why marketing exists, I guess.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. With BCENE to end,
yep.
Do you have sort of a 12-month, 5-year, like, where do you see things growing?
Yeah, like, for me, I'm building out what I would call like a personal branding package, something that is for any business that wants to get their founders or their board on LinkedIn predominantly and making content regularly, and for them not to have to overthink about it. You know, there's input because this is a partnership. It's not I'll go away and write you 10 posts and then I'll send them to you and you'll tell me they're rubbish because it's not what you'd say. It's we'll sit with them, we'll learn what they talk about, we'll learn how they talk, we'll pull together content ideas, and then we'll come and record it, and then they'll have this content to deal with and create that, you know, 6-month, 12-month plan of what that looks like, so that they can become, don't want to say influencers, but they can become seen in their network and seen as industry leaders, I would say. That's the goal.
Amazing. So if there's literally one thing, say someone's listening to this podcast and they're like, okay, I want to start my personal brand today, and I've done a few text posts, but I really don't have the budget to do anything. Should I just use my phone? Should I just walk outside and talk? And really, what's the one piece of advice you'd give to that person that's really on that sort of starting line and just needs to take that one extra step to get started?
Grab a friend or colleague, get them to hold your phone, get them to ask you a question, record the answer, give some subtitles if you can, post it, just start. Because The longer you take to start, the harder it will be to start. And the quicker you start, the more you're going to see the results, the quicker you'll see the results.
Nice.
Useful?
All right, I think that's a perfect way to end this week's episode of the Not a Scooby podcast. Thank you, Will, so much for joining me.
Nice one. Thanks for having me.